Said it's early in this morning now, yeah. I'm singing about you, babe.
I love this. I think there's an intimate squad, a lot of people here that are driven and ready to learn some things. If we could start, we can go Sean, Cara, then Brandon. And then if you guys could just talk about what you do currently and then how you got there and how you transitioned from where we are in college, University of Oregon, to where you are now.
Yeah, thank you. I can, I'll try and keep it as quick as I can. It kind of bounces around a little bit, but where I'm at right now, I'm currently my position title is a day-to-day manager at a management company in Los Angeles called Prodigy Artists. I oversee one of Prodigy's biggest clients. He's a popular touring EDM DJ. His name is Nightmare. Makes kind of like trap and dubstep music. So yeah, I've been there for just about a year and a half now. I was right around my year mark working there is when the pandemic hit, and things have definitely it's tested everyone in the music industry a lot more. But yeah, I mean, what got me there was when I was a freshman at Oregon, I was studying business in Lundquist College of Business, and I was pretty much about a year or two into my pre-business program, and I was like really falling in love with like music production and DJing as well too. And I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm halfway through college. Do I want to go like fully dive into this and be like an artist myself and fully dive into music production? And then I kind of made this decision for myself to finish out school, because I was like, I'm already halfway through like a business program at Oregon, and I'll just try and be as close to the music as I can be on the business front with this degree I'm earning. So what can I do in these next few years at Oregon to make opportunities for myself to get in a position where I can, be working with artists that I love and still get to be in the studio and know everything about like music tech and production and things like that, but also like doing a lot more of the touring side of things and the financials. So I really like management because it's all encompassing, and what I always wanted to be in artist management, but it's kind of a weird road to get there because it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. So when I was like at Oregon, I just took on every opportunity I could. I mean, I volunteered at Wow Hall. Uh, I was like a bouncer at Wow Hall because I just walked in there and asked like, can I help out with shows? So I would just like, way in over my head, like doing security as just like a, college kid at Wow Hall, like trying to just meet as many people like as I could. I worked at KWBA, the Eugene school radio station. Used that as that was a really great platform and opportunity for me to meet other music lovers and people who, whether they're producers or artists themselves or people that want to be in the business. That was great. And I would just have a weekly radio show there, and I used that as an opportunity to get press passes to concerts and cover local like events and shows. And pretty much that led me to having a camera I took around everywhere. I got like a Canon DSLR, like the most simple camera you can get, and I just used that as an opportunity to email managers and publicists and ask if I could go cover the show and shoot some photos for the radio station and like some blogs I was working for. And that camera was really like the I guess you could say just like point of entry for me to like start to network with people in the industry. And I always liked photography, I always liked music production, but I was never like amazing at them. But that eventually like led me to meeting a lot of artists, like shooting for their own shows and like traveling with artists a little bit. Once I started taking pictures of local shows at Wow Hall or McDonald Theater or local Portland, Eugene area shows, I met a bunch of artists, and they introduced me to their managers, helped them out on some like internship like content stuff. So by the time I was a senior at Oregon, I was already having some artists I was touring with a little bit and like helping them out on just while I'm trying to finish school. And by that point on, it was kind of just like LA or bust, because a lot of the people in the industry I was working with or wanted to work with were located there, and I made the jump right after college. And yeah, that's kind of what ultimately led me to where I had a PR job when I first moved to LA, where that again, like I still wanted to get into management, but I was like still not like 100% like, I never had a management company internship, or I never had like someone I knew who worked at a management company. So I just tried to take any inroad I could to like, I think we can get into more like particular advice later on, but I do think something in the music industry that's really beneficial in the beginning is taking on a lot of opportunities that you and not being like one track minded to one thing, because you're never going to know what you really love to do, or you're never really going to know like, you know, music industry people aren't like people who are, you know, doctors or accountants where they study things in school and like you go and do that in your job. It's by the books, like that's what you learn, that's what you do. Music industry is really on the fly and it's always changing. So being able to take opportunities in like PR and in radio and press, like those were all things that like were valuable assets to like teach me how to be good at my job and management now. So yeah, I kind of got, I've just been hustling, like grinding ever since I've been in LA for the last 3.5 years now. And about a year and a half in is when things really started to turn for me. And I was able to get this gig at Prodigy and working with Nightmare. And it's been kind of just like hitting the ground running since then.
Congrats. Can we go to Cara next and then Brandon?
Hey. Yes. So yeah, I got to Oregon when I was 18 and I never planned to work in the music business. I just like music was in my family. My dad is a musician. My mom worked in the music business when she was younger. And so for that reason, I think I never really saw that as something I wanted to do. Like all people, when your parents do things, you're like, ugh, like I don't know. I don't want to do that. But it was also very much in my blood. And as time went on, that kind of came out. Like I started working at KWVA. I worked there for probably 4 years. I worked in the office. I did the merchandise. I had a show. And then I'm sure it's still like this, but people just like wouldn't show up for their shows. So I was always like the go-to, like, can you just come in real quick, or I'd be in the office and I just dip in. And which, by the way, I so appreciate KWVA now more than I ever did. Like, what an amazing thing to be able to sit and DJ. Like, it's just such a cool station. I really miss it. But so I worked at KWVA, and I was the publisher of the Oregon Voice, and I was on the EMU board, which I still can't believe people let me approve like $1 million budgets and things like that. But basically I just kind of did all kinds of different things that later, when I look back, I guess I was kind of always on a path to work in music. I just didn't, I mean, same as you, Sean, like it was just like the amount of tickets I would finagle, not like all the way down to like San Francisco. I would just like find ways to like get into shows and meet the bands and interview them. And yeah, so I started there, and then I kind of got out of college and I was just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I moved to New York, and I was working at a restaurant, and I heard of a job opening at a management company, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like that sounds all right. And I was like, I needed to get out of the restaurant business and do something that I really wanted to do. And so I started as the receptionist, and like pretty quickly after that, I was kind of like, wow, this is really interesting. And I really did just, it was like that. Like I worked at the company for 7 years, and I just kind of fell into it. And I realized that, like you said, Sean, it's like, it is such an interesting area of the music business because you really do learn something new every single day. And as soon as you figure out how to do something changes, and then there's a whole new problem to solve every single day. And I always really liked the problem solving aspect of that. And I guess also in my time in Eugene, I also used to throw house shows a lot. That was like my favorite thing about like some of my favorite memories of that. It was like always my thing for the Voice, and used to help book all of those like the KWVA birthday bash and stuff like that. So yeah, so I guess I was always heading there. And then I just kind of worked my way up at the company. I started to assist, and just kind of every single thing that anybody asked me to do, I just said, okay, kind of to my physical and emotional detriment at times, definitely. And I do think, and again, we will get into this later, but I do think saying yes is a really big part of the job until you can say no. And then by that point, you have to learn how to say no, because when you are hungry and really want something, you're just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Yeah. And management is also a job of yes a lot of times until you can say no. But I said yes until I wasn't being taken seriously as a manager and to sign the things that I wanted to sign. And to me, I was always really interested in developing artists. And a lot of times at big management companies, developing art, especially like old school ones, which I was at, were not into developing artists because they they don't make money basically for a very long time. And so kind of one day on a whim, I had just kind of had it and I didn't plan it. And I just kind of was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm out. Like, I'm leaving. And I quit, and I walked out the door and took all of my bands with me, and took one of the bands that I had been the day-to-day on also. And for the last year and a half, that was going really well. And I think touring was something I was really interested in, and that was not happening at my company. They didn't want us to tour with the band. So I kind of quit, and like for all of last year, basically went on the road and was able to travel all over the world, which was kind of, I was able to live the life that when I thought about living in the music business, like when I watched Almost Famous when I was like 13, I was like, this is what it's like sometimes, in the high moments and also a lot of the very low moments. But I'm really glad I did that, because it all kind of worked out, and I'm on my own right now. And then the pandemic hit, and I'm like everyone, just trying to figure out, what to do from there. But yeah, one of my bands has an album out right now, and the other ones are all kind of in different stages of getting albums out. And that's that's where I'm at today. So that's it.
We love it. Brandon?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, so my name is Brandon. I moved to Eugene in 2017. Yeah, so now I'm here, and it's kind of a crazy story, I think, with everybody else. Like, I have an environmental science degree. Didn't want to, talk about or do music for a very long time. It wasn't even on my mind until I decided to, one day just talk to my buddy, and it was something that we wanted to do. And I got some money together, and without knowing anything, I emailed a bunch of different artists, and I started an LLC, and I reached out to Waka Flocka, and I did a concert with him. And it was the most random thing in the world. And he came, and he had a blast, and he introduced me to a couple people. And I literally from that day just started being, introduced to people, and I built a good connection and a relationship with them. And that's my girlfriend. Built a good relationship and connection with them. And from that point, just started doing more shows. And then, yeah, it's kind of crazy. It just went really fast, literally from 2018 till now. Just started doing my own concerts, and then I became a decent name for myself here, and people were reaching out to me to, host their events. And you got, Lil Mosey went on a tour, and he asked me to do a couple shows, and then I did an Untitled Chapter concert that sadly we just had to cancel. But YB and Corday came through. I did stuff with 24K Golden. Chase Rice, I've got a big show with him that should be coming up. We keep rescheduling it though, but I mean, just artists just reaching out, and it was kind of crazy. And I don't know really how to explain it, except I think it was like low-key fate, very weird, but I loved it. And that's where I'm at today. And I manage 3 artists. One's from Eugene, another's from Seattle, and then another one is from Salt Lake. So started working with them, and the artist from Seattle is having a good break right now. We just signed a $100,000 deal with Empire. And that took a lot of, time and effort and a lot of, hard work. I mean, you're just busting your butt every day. I feel like I don't sleep, but it's so much fun when the good things happen. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at today. And, we're counting every blessing, and we also, take every, mishap or mistake, and we take it as a lesson, and we just go from there. Just got to keep enjoying it though. That's really it. Yeah.
Those are all amazing stories to hear.
We enjoy it. Just to dive in just a tad longer. I think we're going to keep the rotation, Sean, Cara, then Cara, and then Brandon. But if you guys could go into more detail, just what does your job entail on a daily basis? Pretty quick.
Yeah, to sum it up quickly, I mean, let's see. I mean, it's kind of, as a day-to-day manager, the best way to put it is like, you're basically, it works differently with different companies, but I've been very fortunate to have like bosses at a higher level that like are able to allow me to have a ton of trust and freedom with their client. But yeah, on a regular, let's say things are very weird right now, I guess, like, because touring was such a, I mean, it's safe to say that like 90% of our company's revenue was coming from touring before the pandemic hit and whatnot. So like, in electronic music, especially, like DJs are on the road. Nightmare's on the road probably upwards of 200, 250 days a year. He's an absolute like road dog. So a lot of his work is working directly with his tour manager. We're mapping out his schedule. We're like planning his calendar for, we plan his calendar for touring almost like 2-3 years in advance. So, we're on the phone with our agent planning out like we're going to play this festival at this date and do that. And it's a lot of routing a tour, which is basically putting together like a schedule of travel where you're going from like one state to the next where it makes sense. So if you hear someone say they're routing a tour, it means like we're going to Seattle and we're going to Portland and then we're going to San Francisco and we're going to LA. So it all makes sense on a tour. And so yeah, a lot of it is like routing tours, booking travel, working with hiring our crew, making sure we have like our, photographer on the road with us, like all of our like touring personnel. And yeah, making sure the guys are all getting their flights booked. And then, yeah, that's like kind of the half of it on touring for my day-to-day stuff. The other half is more on the marketing and music side of things. On the marketing side of things, I pretty much help run all of our social media accounts, come up with like digital strategies. Nightmare is currently signed to Ultra Music, so I work kind of with our project managers at the label, scheduling out like our next releases, creating marketing rollouts for promoting our new music, and like working with radio, like promotion with radio and press. So it's about a 50-50 balance of working with the artist schedule on the touring front and then planning out the artist schedule on the marketing and music front.
I mean, my day is similar to that. I feel, a lot of it at this point, again, has completely changed. Like some days there's just really very little to do and other days it's crazy. So yeah, on the touring is obviously a big part of it, but not so much anymore. At this point, honestly, I don't think we're touring till 2022. I feel like that's where I've laid my head because it's easier for me to deal with than booking and canceling and booking and canceling. So yeah, anything from social media to I have one of the bands I manage is called The Nude Party, and we released our album the first week of October. So it's been honestly a lot of brainstorming and trying to figure out how to get that album out to people without touring, which they were also like road dogs, like 250 dates a year, just like nonstop touring. And these days, a lot of the job is actually more like being a glorified babysitter because they're all like kind of sitting and thinking through everything and overthinking everything. So a lot of it is managing expectations, and that is a big part of management, by the way. It's like being a shrink in a lot of ways. That is like no one told me that when I started, but yeah, it's so much of everything. Right now, you pretty much said it, Sean. That's a lot of what I do. And then I've also started managing a few producers, and we're working on starting a record label through The Orchard, which is a distributor. So we're trying to figure out how to set that up, and we're trying to do some re-releases of some classic, like this. There's a lot of stuff. So yeah, just trying to find some records to put out. And also one of the artists I manage is a producer, so he has a studio, and we're putting out a couple records that he's produced in the last couple months. So building that out and trying on a few new hats and finding ways to stay busy without touring, because I did not realize just how much touring and touring plans are really the dominant thing in the music business and the main revenue stream. So the other day we had a live stream, and like the tech level of that, I was just like, oh my God, this is not what I signed up for. Like, it is so strange as everything changes. But yeah, Sean pretty much covered what the day-to-day for me looks like too. So that's it.
Honestly, it's just that, to basically copy what they said, tours was huge. That was a huge part of income, as well as the day-to-day role. Planning a tour is not easy at all, and I think they can all agree that. You're trying to get offers and trying to get the best offers, and then trying to get the correct dates, and making sure everything lines up, because it has to be absolutely perfect. You need to show up at the airport and have time to get to the hotel, and make sure you're at a correct hotel, and make sure things aren't, like, imagine planning the biggest vacation of your life 3 times a day, and that's really what it felt like. But now that that's not there, the day-to-day is, I guess with the actual artists, every day, looks like 100 emails, trying to find people to collaborate with or figure out ways to grow the music, a lot of research, networking, phone calls. I mean, you're just constantly trying to figure out a way. I mean, for example, like a single that you just dropped or one of your artists just dropped, you're trying to figure out ways to, promote that properly, market it properly, and get it out there. And that's, that's a big hassle. And then on top of that, like, is it Cara, correct? Perfect. Yeah, like Cara said, you're basically a shrink sometimes. I mean, there, you get your artist who has, oh man, I don't know if the song sounds good, and you sit there for 3 hours to explain to them that it sounds perfect, and they're like, oh, I'm going to change this, and then 10 minutes later they don't, and then they end up releasing what they first made, and then you just got to kind of be there for them and be like, hey, that's awesome, and push it, and you're kind of one of their best friends. I mean, you're really just there for every single thing that they need. Either it's grabbing them a coffee or making sure that they're picked up from the airport for their concert. It's literally every single thing that you can imagine. And yeah, like I said before, it's super fun. As stressful as it is, it's just there's nothing that tops it. It's the craziest job, but I absolutely love it, and I wouldn't change it ever. But that, yeah, day to day is crazy. That's really it.
Looks like we have a wonderful question from DJ Tom Cow, but I'm going to ask 2 more, and then we're going to open it up for Q&As, but keep throwing them in the chat. That's wonderful. What would you say to your college self? It says you're 20 years old, but I'm 22. I'm sure we're an assortment of ages here.
Let me think what I say to my college self. I would say just keep trusting what inspires you, and like you'll be on the right path. I like what I'm doing right now is kind of manifesting exactly what I wanted to do when I was in college. And I would tell my 20-year-old self, I'm proud of you for putting your head down and working and taking on a bunch of opportunities to get here. And I think, yeah, whatever the future may hold for you, just like keep being inspired by like what is drawing you to music, and like try and keep that flame lit to make sure if you're inspired, you're always going to want to work hard. So make sure to just like find that inspiration as much as you can to stay on the right path.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard question. I feel like I would definitely want to tell my college self when I was leaving Eugene that it was going to be okay to leave Eugene, that leaving Eugene was very, very difficult for me. I like loved it so very much. But I would say, yeah, just to like follow your gut. And that, yeah, my gut has always been, has always led me in the right direction. So just follow your gut and believe in that, the universe will provide for you if you work hard, and don't worry about being lost. It's okay to not know exactly what you want to do right when you get out of college, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I would honestly just tell myself, literally stop stressing. It's there and you're going to have it, but just don't let it get to you at all, because everything just, it's going to work out. It's such a crazy thing to say, because it's just how it has been. I mean, wake up stressed, go to bed stressed, but then things happen. You're like, oh my gosh, okay. So then you're like, I just wasted 3 months of stress for nothing because it ended up working out. So, literally, yeah, don't stress. And if you do, don't take it as such a heartache, or, don't let it beat you up too much, because it's going to absolutely mean nothing 4 months, maybe even 4 days down the road. Like, it's going to be gone.
We got some snaps there. Last one. What are some skills, resources, and educational tools that you recommend to college students right now as they try and prepare for a career in the music industry?
Yeah, I guess I can kind of break it down into a few different things. I would say tools that are really helpful are probably learning templates, like on the like kind of like email and like tech side of things, like learning templates of like how to be like professionally have your resume created and reach out to people in the industry. You'd be very surprised how far a cold email can get you sometimes. And that's actually how I got my job right now. Like I was saying earlier, like a lot of people who are like studying school to be a doctor, or like an accountant or something, they have this very by the books like notion of how their career path will follow. But yeah, I think having like doing a bit of research on like, or reaching out to other like professionals or colleagues to discuss your resume, or like just networking in that sense helps a lot too. And I can even help you guys with some, if I can drop my email or like send over some templates of like ways to properly reach out to people. That's because like I said, I can go a long way. And then on the kind of like, let's think, on the not like tech side of things, I read a couple books that like helped me a lot as well too. I know that's like, it was like Everything You Know About the Music Business.
That's what I was
Was
going
a
to
really
say.
big one. I can send you guys a link to that one as well too.
Yeah.
There's like a generic artist management one I read as well too, which was really helpful. I think those resources are really helpful. And then just like inundating myself with like, even if it's something you're not like entirely interested in, it's really important to be up on like trends in tech and music, just because with things changing so much, it's really helpful to know where like the landscape of things are going. So every Friday, like I'll like run through New Music Friday on Spotify and like see what's coming out, like who's dominating the charts. Like I read through the trade magazines like Billboard and things like that, just to know like what's going on in the industry. And that gives you a really good idea of being up to speed on everything that's happening. So the more knowledge you know about where things are heading in the industry, the smarter you'll sound when you're talking to everyone. So I'll share a link. It's kind of hard for me to like put it all into one like specific thing, but I can send you guys a bunch of resources if you're looking for more information.
Yeah, thank you so much. That would definitely be helpful.
We'll post them on the website.
Yeah.
I was going to say everything you need to know about the music business is what like every old person in the music business will tell you. It's Don Passman is the guy who wrote it. And I was like, you need to read that book. And for so long I didn't read it because I was like, I don't want to listen to these old guys, but it is a very comprehensive book. And I would say actually pretty much any book about music history that you can read, especially from like the 1950s onward, will be beneficial to you. Like the more that you can read about history and like managers and whatever area you are interested in, like it's all it's all changing, but it's also all the same. And I think it's always been the same since, it's a relatively new business, like the music business in general. But I think that there is a lot to be learned from history, and also keeping up like with Billboard and Consequence of Sound and all of those music blogs like will kind of help you generally understand what's going on, just in general, and like technologies and things that are happening. I think
I feel like what was the question one more time? I feel like I've lost it a bit.
Skills, resources, or educational tools.
Okay, perfect. For me, I would say the biggest thing is organization in everything, whether it's like your emails, if you're a pen to paper person, that's what I started off with. I was just writing everything down, but I kept it all filed. Then I went to the computer and just like keeping everything like really organized, because you're going to be talking to so many different people, especially if you like come into this, like full-fledged, like everybody. This industry is about who you know. So like if anybody, even if you mention like, oh, I used to do this, like you might help somebody out. So then you'll talk to them and it could go crazy. So just keeping that really organized. That's a good skill. I would say, also be aggressive, but also like understanding, like when you're reaching out to people, like don't be afraid to ask them literally anything, but also understand like you can't ask them every single thing, but use that to like say, hey, I'm not gonna be afraid today to, hey, ask this gentleman if he knows this person, or ask her if she knows this guy, or just really like be aggressive with what you're doing, because the more you know and the more people you do know is definitely the farther you're going to go in this industry. And then I'd say keeping up with trends is really good. Organization is my biggest one. Just stay organized, because everything kind of comes down to that. There's a lot of circling back and a lot of trying to figure out like, oh, did this happen last year? Or, just figure that out and stay on track, and you'll be good.
As far as the trends, my recommendation, student observation, is Google Alerts. Like I have Live Nation, live music, concerts. I have music internships, and it's like just daily to the inbox. I'm going to send it open Q&A. Let's go DJ Tom Cal, and then we'll send it to Allie. And then we'll take it from there, whoever wants to go.
Hey, so I don't know if you saw my questions in the chat already, but for Sean, quick question for you. What does a graphic design position at your label look like? And what is the culture and the environment like?
Yeah, so a lot of graphic designers, there's kind of a couple of different ways that they can get work in the industry. I think the first which of ways like being just a freelance designer, and what will happen is artists and labels and management teams will hit you up to commission whether that be album art or like a visualizer video, or maybe you're like commissioning a music video like treatment or something. A lot of people that are in the creative space, whether it be graphic design or whatever, they can kind of take that freelance route to it as well too, which is tough if you're not as connected. But a lot of times like labels have a in-house like graphic design team. So our label that we work with, Ultra Music for Nightmare, they have a creative services team. And what they do is every time we have a project that's coming out, whether that be a single or an album or like a big music video, they work hand in hand with us about, helping us get our vision for the song. They talk with us and the artist about like, okay, so this is your new single. What do the lyrics mean? What does, the vibe of the song sound like? And then from that point on, we'll kind of have an organized discussion with them. They'll go out and a lot of these people on the creative services team at the label, they have in-house graphic designers, but also sometimes they'll commission something as well too that will come in from a marketing budget. And yeah, what they'll do is it's just a collaborative process working with the artist and the management team, like sharing drafts of feedback. And then it's always like from that point on, it's very deadline heavy. It's like, we got the song coming out on the 7th. We got to have the artwork by the, 2 weeks before, and then we'll upload it to Spotify. So yeah, it's a very collaborative process. I think the environment is very open, and yeah, it's got a lot of room for growth. And I think that as an aspiring graphic designer, if that's something you have questions or interest in, it could be really helpful to go get a job at a label or something as well too, because they have the space to bring people on that do that in-house. But yeah, it's also something, there's a lot of inroads as well too if you do it as a freelance graphic designer too.
Two questions. Oh gosh. The first one, getting a job at the labels. Where can I find that in the Eugene area? And well, yeah, start with that at the moment. Start with that.
Yeah. So I think everyone is kind of in a unique position right now, because when I was graduating college, the labels, if you want to work for a record label in the United States, you needed to live in New York or Los Angeles or sometimes Nashville if it's, that's also, there's some other smaller boutique labels in Seattle, and I'm sure there's some in like Austin, Texas and stuff, but the major record labels, which is, under Sony, Warner, and Universal, are all based in Los Angeles and New York with their headquarters. So a lot of that, how people get their foot in the door there is there's a lot of internship opportunities at those labels. People can, I know Warner Music has a really good college program for like ambassadors and stuff. So there's ways to kind of get your foot in the door with that. But yeah, fortunately for everyone right now, like all of these labels are working from home. So there's certainly an opportunity where you're not at any disadvantage not being in Los Angeles or New York. I think now is the time that's really great to like go out and like try and connect with those people on LinkedIn, or like try and find there are lots of job postings for labels that you'll see on, the major job posting websites, but it's a super competitive thing. So yeah, I think you're in a unique position because you guys have a lot of opportunity to go after that. But yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's a tough thing. It's kind of hard. I don't know how to like specifically answer your question, but because labels are tricky. They're like, it seems kind of like daunting if you're someone who has no label experience, then you're supplying to like Universal Music Group on like Glassdoor or something, and you're like, how will I even like get through to someone? There's probably thousands of people applying to this, but I can speak from experience that I know plenty of people who have gotten jobs like at labels applying through those things as well too. So
Right. And also, do graphic designers at labels do promotionals as well, like merch, posters,
yeah.
any other forms of accessories?
Yeah, so the same people that do the creative services at the label, be it like the digital team or whatever, they'll also like have people, whether it's the same person that's making the album art or someone else, they will have people that will do like creating merch samples and bundling for their designs and stuff. And they also do like inserts or whatever cool like promotional opportunities they have. Like if you have a cool promotional idea to a major record label, like if they're not presenting it to you, like you can certainly present it to them and they'll try and find a budget if it's a really unique like digital opportunity.
I would also say, just to piggyback off of what you were saying earlier, like how far a cold email can get you. Like I get emails from designers very often. Like I get people who reach out to me, and like half the time, I'd say about half the time I actually look, and that's just me being honest because there's a million things going on in a day. But like it is beneficial. Like if you have a portfolio, I do think that there is a benefit to getting your portfolio together and finding some artists that you do like that, and finding their manager and things, and you can like reach out as well to them and be like, hey, I'm a big fan of this artist. I would love to work with them, because you might have more luck on like the immediate if you have a style that gels. Like everyone's always looking for help with merch and art, and hit them up on Instagram. Like cold contacting does work sometimes, so it is worth it. I've definitely done a couple like merch collaborations with people, or like video stuff when they just email you and you look at it and you're like, this is actually really cool. So, and that's like almost closer to the artist. I think that can be also helpful. Yeah.
Really quick, I posted in the Discord, like you might want to check it out. There's a student series guide. There was like a webinar week long from the Orchard, which Cara said she was working with under Sony, and they're actually talking about building a portfolio, learning how to use Giphy and stuff like that. And then in the careers, I posted, there's NPR Music has like 43 paid positions, and Spotify, I believe the summer internships are due this month, and there's like 70 of those. And there's some other stuff that I'll post in the career. But I believe it's Allie's turn.
Hello. So I have kind of like a double-ended question for anybody. What should an artist manager's priorities be when they're first starting out, and are there key breakthrough moments throughout the career?
I mean, I would say from the very beginning, having an artist that you really believe in is going to be a really good start. Like, I mean, you can work at a company, or you can, I think ultimately it doesn't really matter where you are, as if you see talent in somebody and you believe in that talent, like that to me is like, being a manager is a very like emotional, and to me like a particularly romantic job in a lot of ways, because you kind of are, especially if you're going to develop an artist. I do think that there's there's kind of like a romance to me in it, that you're like, I will give up everything to make sure that this happens, because you are like you are the first line of defense to help that person get to where they need to go. And so I do feel like it is really important to wholeheartedly believe that artist can be successful. And if you have an artist that you believe in, and you have a bond with that artist, like you will go, you can go everywhere together. I mean, I feel like, yeah, I don't know. That's
So like in terms of priorities, so like what are some things you should be doing like right off the bat in like the day-to-day, like whether that's marketing or promo, or like helping them create content, etc.
Yeah, well, real quick, I would say it really depends on where your artist is at. Because let's say you're hopping into an artist who, or managing an artist who can make his music or her music and has, 10 songs, but they never released it yet. And they don't have any platform like that. You're brand new. Then your first priority is probably to build, your Spotify account and your Apple Music account, and get some sort of distribution, whether that's, DistroKid or TuneCore, any sort, or who knows, some distribution company out there that's taking a percentage. But that would be your main priority if you're starting off like that. Now, if you're going into an artist who has already, released their music and has, a fan base, whether it's 500 people or 500,000 people, it doesn't really matter. Your priority then, I think, is now day to day, depending on what they're doing. If it's music related, getting that music out there, making sure it's released in a timely manner, whatever they ask, like, cover art, getting all that stuff organized and getting that ready. And then, there's different strategies per artist. So it's kind of hard to really say, what your main priority is. But I mean, are you asking about a certain individual that you're looking to work with?
I'm kind of just yeah, definitely both of the artists that I'm kind of like thinking about are like very brand new, just like making music all the time. Like we're trying to get that content in there, but I guess just as a manager who's kind of uneducated, really I just feel like almost incompetent. So I want to know like what steps should I be taking so I can really like help them out, you know, feel like I'm
Yeah.
providing value.
I think what would be cool, and I've actually worked on this before, but put together a little checklist. Like I'll put that together and then send it over to wherever I need to send it. But that probably, very, very simple. Like, hey, let's get, make sure these are done before you move on to the next step. And then, because like I said, each artist is going to be a little bit different. But yeah, I would say, if they're brand new, building their profiles and getting, a name for themselves, like on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all those platforms, getting their music out there, especially if they've dropped something. What was I gonna say? Oh, also a contract. I would say that's pretty important too from the beginning, whether they're your best friend or not, or they're just somebody you're about to work with. Have them either make something that you can bring to a lawyer, or you make something that they can bring to, but just have something, because you never know. I mean, you can have an artist who you never sign a contract with, and I've seen it happen. It hasn't happened to me just yet, but I've seen people, work with somebody and the fame gets to their head, and let's say they do make, they sign a $2 million deal. You've been working with them for 10 years. You just never thought about it, and they say, okay, bye. And even though you just busted 10 years of your life with them, you didn't get anything because from the beginning you didn't set those clear expectations. So make sure you just have those set down. You know exactly what you're doing and what they're doing, and you have that, in writing, just in case. I would definitely say that.
Also, Brandon, I have a question. How do you know which distribution sites like DistroKid and CD Baby? How do you know which one is right for you?
So that's really up to you. You can look at DistroKid and go down their entire list of services and where they can put you in their platforms and all that stuff. And, they don't take a percentage. So that's really good. So it's a good starting point. I would say DistroKid. I mean, a lot of people use DistroKid. There's some big artists out there that still use it. And then you look over at TuneCore. My artists personally, they use TuneCore. It's just been really easy. It's a lot more user friendly, and I think it's just more intuitive. Like there's a lot more breakdowns and a lot more, stuff that you can see, different data points and that kind of stuff. It really just depends on what you're looking for. They both offer relatively the same thing, to be completely honest with you. It's an independent distribution platform, and they don't take a dime. They charge you a yearly subscription for, $19 or $10, whichever, package you choose. So it's really up to you on what you want to do.
Also, I have Ali, to go off of your question as well too, just to speak from the experience of like how the Nightmare Project has kind of worked from like kind of square one with him. The whole thing was like he had just finished school at Icon, like producing music, so like he'd gotten like he had his like production skills up to par, and like he hadn't really released a lot of stuff yet. So before like the Nightmare Project really like kicked off, like square one for that was really like stacking a bunch of music. Like it was like having like, okay, we have 10 finished songs here that are all like really good, and then you have these like 5 remixes. So like once you have a lot of gas in the tank right from the beginning, I would say make sure that like you can build up a bunch of things in the branding perspective of things or in the marketing side of things. You can get a bunch of followers, you can get some interesting people in the press and stuff, but people are always going to be wanting to know what's next. And if you have the music to back it up, and you know that the artist that you're working with who's developing has like 10 songs ready to go that can be pitched to a record label or to a blog or something like that, like that's just like content to feed the machine, really. And like that's just gonna like pay off, a lot in the beginning and long term, because then having a bunch of music ready to go and make sure it's like up to par is really important too.
Great, thank you.
Also, I'd love to give a shout out to TikTok. If you can do it, I'd try. I believe Nigel is next.
Yes, I was wondering.
Sorry, what was I didn't hear the full question.
Yeah, no worries. In situations where like you kind of have a disagreement on where the artist should go or their path, how do you handle that, and how does that work or look out?
I mean, I think just being really being super transparent and very honest with your artist is the most important thing. But at the end of the day, like, you do work for the artist. So, you know, there are going to be shady managers that like say you need to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. But like, that's not really the type of like toxic relationship you really want to be in with an artist. Like, you want to have them feel like they have their voice heard and they have creative freedom. So just lending your ears to like let them say what they want to say. There are times when like artists like really don't want to come to an agreement of what you might think is best for them, but you also have to know that it's a mutual relationship, much like, you know, a relationship with a significant other, or like, you know, it comes with like certain amounts of, you know, you have to do things that is for the greater good, and there may be moments of compromise. But at the end of the day, I mean, we work for the artists, so if they want to do something, then, you know, we're only there to lend our advice, but we can't ultimately like force their hand into doing something that they don't want to do, or that they're not like comfortable with, or like don't fully feel confident in.
I do think that a key part of this job, and it's taking me a long time, like I'm still learning, but is to not be emotional or like take it personally when the artist won't listen to what you have to, or like won't believe you, because ultimately, you know, there are a lot of hard calls that you have to make in this job every day. And like, there are always new situations where you're like, wow, I can't believe that we're like having to discuss how to do this. And, but in the end of the day, I think, yeah, not being too emotional and not taking it personally when they don't listen to you, because over time, like the longer you do work with an artist, I do think you build that trust to a point where like one of my bands, we are constantly disagreeing because there are a lot of them. And you know, if one person, it's like a poisoned well, right? Like it's all good, and then one person will be like, oh, like I don't know about this, and then it just like filters, and you have to have the same conversation over and over and over until finally, I mean, I think there are moments when you do need to put your foot down and you can explain why it is best for them, and like be like, I wouldn't say this if I wasn't, you know, 100% positive. But ultimately, like Sean said, like, you know, it is your job to advise and you work for them. And one of the hard parts about management is that you kind of are constantly auditioning, even if you are with an artist for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Like I've been working with an artist for 7 years, and, you know, we trust each other implicitly, but it's like, yeah, if you don't know, and in a second, and it is a stressful part of the job. So there are times where you just kind of have to be like, okay. And, you know, and then they learn from experience. Like if you're wrong about something, you know, if you're right about something and they made the wrong decision, generally, if you have a good relationship with that person, they do recognize and will come back around, and you'll grow trust over time. But that's a really good question, because it's different every day.
Could you take a minute and talk about getting your artists into like Rolling Stone, New York Times Square? Like I'm seeing NPR Tiny Desk, and I love all those things.
Yeah. Well, the Rolling Stone thing, that is partially our publicist and partially the band. I mean, who you know, again, is going to help you tremendously in this business of Rolling Stone, is a big fan of the band. And so he's been a champion of them for a long time. Though I will say, Rolling Stone did just go behind a paywall, which actually has changed the way we kind of view putting things up, like in terms of premieres. And a lot of blogs and magazines are starting to, they don't really have a lot of money, and their writers are not focusing on premieres. So it has been very challenging during this time to get press. But yeah, that was our publicist. I mean, he got the Rolling Stone gig, and, you know, over time, I mean, this is the band's second record, and a lot of it was just like you invite writers out to the shows, and then they come, and then they become a fan of the band, and then you kind of gently remind them later down the road. You're like, oh, this is coming out. You send out a press release, and they remember that they like the band and picked it up. The Billboard, which I actually went and saw today, and it was so cool. I like, I cried. I was just like, wow, it was my career first Billboard. But yeah, a good friend of mine works at Amazon, and he's like the artist relations guy, which we met just through being at festivals and things. And so I had invited him like a year ago to come to see the band play, and he just became a fan. And every year Amazon does, like they do these Amazon originals. So they basically have like a budget, and they'll give a budget to an artist. And if they're on a label, they have to work it out with the label, like the, you know, the logistics of that. But they created a piece of original content. So they did a cover of a Neil Young song that Amazon paid for. And essentially, I mean, it's not, I wish it was like a more compelling or sexier story, but essentially, like, I am pretty good friends with the guy at Amazon, and he likes the band. And when the song came out, he texted me and was like, if we did a billboard for this, would you rather it be New York or Nashville? And I was like, New York, please. And and that was really it. I wish I could say that there was something more juicy there, but it was essentially like a friend favor. But it was a trip looking, because I was like, wow, like it was like Amazon today, they had like a whole bunch of scrolls, and it was like Sam Smith and Ariana Grande, and then, you know, my little baby band. So it felt really, really cool. Even if Times Square is half empty, it's not the best timing for a billboard in Times Square, but victories, those are moments that feel really, really good, especially right now without touring, because I don't know, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Like there is very little, like the reward, management is extremely hard work, and it is also one of the most thankless jobs in the business. Like you will be the first person that the artist will be mad at if something goes wrong, and like the last person to recognize, like, because you're behind the scenes a lot. And so for me, a lot of the joy of the job comes from those moments when you see a crowd of people loving the music, or, you know, there's like a physical, tangible result. Because a lot of what you do, there's not a tangible result immediately. And it's just like a constant waiting game of like investing your time into something that you know has potential. So when you get a billboard or something like that, that is like, I really needed that in the last 9 months after not being able to see one group of people like loving this record. So that was pretty cool.
So I guess I kind of have a question based off of what you and Sean have said. Sean, earlier you said there was a time in your life where you thought it was LA or bust. And then Cara, I know you're in New York, and Brandon, even you too, since you are in pretty much an urban hub in Eugene as well. Like, how do you think you have become successful at networking in a new city? Like, how have you found your voice, and how are you choosing your circles in these cities that are ultimately helping you become more successful?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, I would say that like how I kind of like networked once I got down here, it was pretty much like, yeah, saying yes to like anything I could, or like, you know, taking any opportunity that I could. It A lot of way that like people kind of get their like start, at least in like the space that I'm in, is like there's a lot of like club nights in LA out on like Tuesday nights. There's like this big party, Space Yacht, that happens all the time. So like going out there, it may sound kind of like a drag where you're like, I just finished my work day, like, but you know, and I'm not even going out to like party per se, but I would always go out and just be like, okay, I'm gonna go out and meet people here, try and meet this photographer. Like I recognize that guy from like Instagram, he manages this guy. So like kind of navigating the space in that sense, where it's like going out to the clubs and like trying to get like a guest list for like a festival or something, and then when you get there, just like not being kind of just like running around and just like enjoying yourself, but also realizing everything is a networking opportunity. So yeah, just like trying to get, once I got on the ground in LA, it was pretty much just like going to as many concerts as I could, or going to, you know, industry events, or you know, backstage things. Like I would just try and do anything I could to just meet as many people. And it's still kind of that mentality as well, but you know, things have slowed a little bit, and like with COVID, you don't really have the opportunity to go out and network with people the same way. So that shifted things a lot too, that I could kind of go introspectively talk about for a long time. But yeah, just much like in college, I mean, you get out of it, we put into it, and like saying yes to lots of opportunities, like, and knowing your role, and not like being afraid to get out of your comfort zone and meet new people is I'm fortunate for the experience I had in Eugene, because I met so many amazing people, and like it really pushed me out of that comfort zone. So when I did make the jump to LA, although it's a big, overwhelming city, it never felt too intense, because I was still able to just feel like I was like a young college kid again, just like going out and shaking hands and meeting as many people as I could.
What's one club that you recommend down in LA that you've met the most people?
Oh, like a nightclub?
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, yeah, the big thing in like dance music is like there's like these like parties called like Space Yacht and like Brownies and Lemonade. Those are like two big like club nights that happen like once or twice. Like they have a weekly at Sound Nightclub in LA, and like I would just go out there, and that's where like a lot of young artists get the opportunity to showcase themselves, like managers and agents who show up to these club nights. And yeah, they're in like small like 400 500 capacity rooms, and it's just like a hot sweaty, like, you know, whether it's like house music or techno or like dubstep, like that's just when like a bunch of young kids in LA go out to party. But like the kind of like DJ booth area is just a bunch of like industry professionals. So that's where I kind of got my like, you know, networking skills on.
We're running slightly over, but I'd love to close with a couple questions. First with Sean. Can you talk about, you were co-founder of this club, your vision and like what we should be executing and what you'd like to see out of us?
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy because when we were starting this thing, I remember I was like the VP of external affairs as well too. So we were kind of in charge of like, I was kind of in charge of like helping book professionals to come and speak with the mic. And I think you guys are in a really unique and exciting opportunity now, because for some reason we were just like, it probably just the changing with the times, but like we're like always like trying to fly people out to Eugene to get them to come speak. And like now everyone's just used to talking on Zoom all the time. So it's really exciting to know that like you guys can like continue to probably grow this thing even quicker, like just with like the online, like, you know, meeting format that we have of things. And it's really inspiring to watch like you guys grow this thing digitally, and like there's still just as many people engaged and as excited despite how challenging the world is right now. So I would encourage you to just keep doing what you're doing. And I know the music scene's taking a hit locally in Eugene as well too. You know, you guys can't throw like shows at school. There's not as many like house parties going on or house shows, and that's got to be really tough. And I'm sorry that like, you know, it can kind of like derail people's plans a bit, but you guys are making all the right moves, like taking things digitally and just like continuing to push the needle forward with this club. So I would just encourage you to continue to do that. It seems like you guys are doing all the right things.
Okay. I like it. Make him a Mark in Eugene. The only reason this happened is because I think I reached for the moon. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has done this before. I mean, the other promoters I've talked to were talking about how, you know, they started off with house parties and this, and then they, you know, did a 400 person show, and then this, and then that, and just grew and grew and grew. But I literally jumped into it and sold 3,200 tickets to a show with Waka Flocka in Eugene, Oregon, and he's never been there before. And I had to throw him $25,000 as a deposit just to get him to, you know, like I basically took a gigantic leap of faith with which I would, if I could go back, I'd be like, maybe don't do it that big, but like still like it was awesome because there's a lot of risk there, but it worked out. So because of that chance that I took, which, you know, a lot of people, I mean, my parents and, you know, some of my best friends were like, man, just do it. Like, just do it. You're so young. Like, you know, what's the worst that can happen? And like, yeah, I could have lost a lot of money, but realistically, what's the worst that could have happened? I could have lost a lot of money, you know, like, and you just start over, you know, it was money that I probably saved up for 2.5 years. Like it was like, and that flies by, you know what I'm saying? So do you take that risk to lose 2 years of savings? Yeah, probably, maybe, like, you know, do something like that because that's what started it. And I got a bunch of write-ups about it, and it went from that show to, you know, my biggest event was, it was in Rexburg, Idaho, which is really strange because it's like a really weird spot. But, you know, we had like over 13,000 people show up to that. And it was a music festival that I put on, you know, with an artist named JTM. He's an artist that I now manage. But I had like him, Drake Bell, David Archuleta, like a bunch of like random people that everybody loved in Rexburg for some reason. And we put it on there and we sold a bunch of tickets, and we had to keep changing the venue because it kept getting bigger and bigger. And we ended up doing it, you know, in a street, and we raised sponsored, like it literally started from just taking a huge leap of faith to then, you know, where I'm at today, which is awesome. But obviously, yes, COVID sucks. We've got about 26 shows that I've rescheduled and have still rescheduled, and I just keep pushing them, and it's a headache, but hopefully it works out. You know, that's like I said before, I'm not going to stress about it too much because most of the worst that can happen. You know, that's really that.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate each and every single one of you, both for joining and for talking to us. And yeah, I just feel so inspired right now after hearing all of you guys. So thanks.
And anyone can feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer more specific questions at any point. So
Perfect.
All my links as well, so feel free to reach out with anything.
Thank you so much, guys.
And once again, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Mike
us.
on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank.
Bye.
I didn't hear you.
You said it's early in this morning.
Okay,
now.
ciao.
easy.
Bye, guys.
I'm singing
Thank
Thank you
about
so
again.
much.